Let's talk about the Samsung Galaxy S9's cameras. If you're a fan, they're what truly sets these phones apart from the competition. If you're a cynic, they're the only real upgrade in what is otherwise a very boring upgrade cycle. Either way, they're easily the most interesting thing about Samsung's latest flagships, and more than 2 weeks with the S9 Plus has given us a chance to get to know them properly. So here we go, here's everything you need to know about the unique camera setup of the Samsung Galaxy S9. For most of this video, we're going to concentrate on the Galaxy S9 Plus with its dual camera setup. As you probably know by now, the smaller S9 only has the main camera, not the secondary telephoto camera. The main camera uses Sony's brand new IMX345 sensor, which actually isn't listed anywhere officially yet, making it hard to know exactly what is new about this sensor. However, unconfirmed reports point to faster readout speeds compared to the old IMX333 used in the Galaxy S8, which is what helps to enable the S9's super slow-mo video features. Samsung says the sensor itself has its own DRAM, dedicated memory which helps it buffer all those frames, and surely helps it with the multi-frame photography that helps the Galaxy S9 capture such clear, detailed photos. Multi-frame photography is similar to what Google does with HDR Plus on its Pixel phones. Just as important is the other main hardware change in this camera. The S9's main camera lens can switch between f1.5 and f2.4 on the fly, opening and closing between these two f-stops, and in auto mode it'll proactively choose which one works best for the shot. F1.5 is the widest aperture in any smartphone to date, letting in a huge amount of light in darker conditions and producing a rich bokeh effect in macro shots. F2.4 gives you a deeper depth of field, keeping more of the scene in focus at a time. In brighter daylight conditions, the S9 will default to the narrower aperture to keep more in focus, with less distortion than you might see at f1.5. At night, the f1.5 setting helps the S9 capture much more detail because it lets in way more light, which means you can shoot at a lower ISO sensitivity, which in turn means you can capture way more fine detail with much less noise and grain. Again, there's no need to worry about which one you're using in auto mode, though if you really want to switch between the two and see the difference between f1.5 and f2.4, there is a toggle in Pro mode. If you look really closely around the back, you'll see the tiny mechanism open and close as you do. Like I said, the S9 Plus also has a secondary telephoto camera, and as far as we've been able to tell, this is basically identical to what Samsung was already using on the Note 8. A 12 megapixel sensor with optical stabilization behind an f2.4 lens. It's worth underscoring that this isn't the same super speed dual pixel sensor that's used in the main camera, so between that and the narrower aperture, your low light options with this camera are limited. In darker conditions, the S9 Plus switches to a digital crop of the main camera instead. That's very common for dual camera phones. It means you get brighter, clearer images with less fine detail, as opposed to true optical zoom that might look dark, noisy and murky. Samsung's live focus feature, its answer to portrait mode, is largely unchanged from what we saw on the Galaxy Note 8 all those months ago, which is to say it works fine with stationary objects, adding depth and artistically defocusing the background, but any kind of motion or transparency will quickly trip up Samsung's depth sensing algorithms. As you might imagine then, day-to-day still photo performance is great, and largely comes down to personal taste as to whether you think the Google Pixel 2 produces better photos than the S9. Google has that computational magic that takes multiple exposures and number crunches them into bright, vibrant shots, often pulling in color details that your eye can't see. The Galaxy S9's main camera produces photos that are sharper and less grainy, but lacking some of that magic of the Pixel's photos. Check out our full Galaxy S9 Plus video review for more on the phone's photographic performance. 960 frame per second slow motion capture is the S9's big new video trick, and in the right conditions it's really impressive. It's also a lot easier to use than rival implementations from the likes of Sony, thanks to its ability to detect motion in a particular area and start slow-mo automatically. Just drag the box over where the action's going to be and you're good. This is the kind of feature that requires some planning though, as well as a lot of very bright light. In anything less than daylight or studio lighting if you have it, quality degrades quickly. That's because although the S9 has a great camera, you're still taking 960 exposures every second. The S9 can capture 0.2 seconds of super slow-mo footage at a time, which translates into 6 seconds when played back at 30 frames a second. And you're also limited to 720p resolution, meaning the dip in quality compared to regular video will be noticeable even on Instagram or Facebook. Still, Samsung is the best implementation of this feature we've seen so far, and if you want to step up the video quality, 1080p capture is also available at 240 frames per second. AR emoji is one of the big controversial features of the S9. Is it a fun way to goof around with animated characters using nothing more but your human face? Or is it a cynical iPhone Animoji ripoff that can't compete? I'll leave it up to you to decide, but there's really not a whole lot to AR emoji right now. First you scan your face, then the phone runs the numbers and turns you into an animated humanoid blob that may or may not resemble you, and may or may not look kinda creepy. From there you can pose your 3D doppelganger, add augmented accessories to your own real-life face, or go nuts with bunny rabbit or devil costumes. The biggest criticism I can find, aside from the central idea being kinda stupid, is that the sensors in the Galaxy S9 aren't quite up to the level of Apple's Face ID system. The motion tracking isn't as fluent, and while the S9's front camera is great at taking selfies, it doesn't take in enough fine detail to capture facial motion like the iPhone X does. Whether that matters to you depends on what you want out of a camera. Regardless, as an overall photographic package, there's a lot to like about Samsung's latest phones. And the camera is by far the biggest concentration of new stuff in these devices. Check out our full review for more on the S9 and S9 Plus, and subscribe so you don't miss future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.